Welcome to Doing Business with a Servant's Heart podcast. I'm so excited for season 2 and the great guests you're going to hear from, their struggles, how they overcame their struggles, their triumphs. Through personal and business life, I think they're tied together, and we're going to share great stories about that. This show isn't just about me. It takes a lot of good people working with me. Among them is my partner, H7 Network, and Clay Hicks. Building relationships, building community is the mission of H7 Network. They want to create a network of champions where everybody wins. Find out more at h7network.com. And we hope to motivate you, inspire you, and educate you through our show. Enjoy the show. We'll talk to you on the other side. Welcome, everyone, to Doing Business with a Servant's Heart. And this day is Memorial Weekend, and it's interesting that my next guest is a veteran and still in the military, but I've really built a great bond with this gentleman, and you're going to love him on this show because he's the real deal, tells the real, but he really cares and is a servant. Hey, Oak, welcome to the show.
Hey, Steve, thanks for having me on the show. I've been looking forward to this all day.
Me too. You're so much fun to talk to, and people need to hear what you say. How long have you been in the military?
So I did 23 years on active duty, but if you count my time doing something in the military, I've been associated with the military for about 40 years.
What has the military taught you for your lessons of life?
One of them is self-discipline, and not discipline. There's a huge difference between self-discipline and discipline. Discipline is, you got to have some discipline. You know, there's times when somebody has to force you to do something, and that's discipline. But if you really want to be successful in life, you got to have self-discipline. And I always tell people, here's the big difference. We wish and we hope we can be motivated every day. That's not life. We're not motivated every day. And those days that you're not motivated, that self-discipline will make you do the things that you would have done if you'd been motivated.
You hear the phrase, and we've talked couple times already, that military builds true leaders. Is that a true statement? And does it do that?
So I think it can. I think, again, it all depends on the people who are in it, and the leaders that you end up having the privilege to serve with. I've been lucky in my life. I've had some great servant leaders who, for whatever reason, took me under their wing and became mentors and kind of taught me that way. But then, you know, if you get those bad leaders, and there are bad leaders in the military, just like anything else, then you learn some bad lessons. And a lot of those young leaders get out because they get disenfranchised for whatever reason. One, because they had a leader they didn't respect or whatever, but they've learned some bad lessons. So I think the military has historically produced some great leaders, but so has the business world too. I mean, there's people out there who were great leaders. Lee Iacocca, one of my favorite leaders. John Wooden, famous college basketball coach, who I think was probably one of the best leaders I've ever read about or heard about. So I think it can go either way. The military certainly does, but I think the civilian world produces some great leaders as well.
What branch of the military were you in?
So I was in the Army.
Okay.
And like I said, I did 23 years as a combat arms officer. I started off as an infantry officer, did my first 5 years there, and then I switched over. I was an armored cavalry officer for my last 18. Then I ran a food bank for a couple of years, the day-to-day operation of a food bank. And then for the last 10 years, I've been a government service officer doing recruiting for Army ROTC. So helping to produce that next generation of leaders.
Thank you for that service. That's important to me because we do need to work on that area. We've talked about that. So you're a lieutenant colonel. Is it your last?
Yeah,
rank?
I'm a retired lieutenant colonel. Right.
So you actually led a lot of men. What was your style?
I'm a huge believer in servant leadership. You know, I tell every one of these young lieutenants, and whenever I'm out talking to organizations as well, that look, leadership is, the phrase I use all the time is, it's all about you. It's not about you, and it's all about you. It's not about you and the title you get or the privileges you get, or that you get better pay and get to live in a nicer house and drive a nicer car. Look, leaders get that usually, and that's okay, as long as that's not the reason you wanted to be the leader. If that's the only reason you wanted to be the leader, go do something else, because you're never going to be a good one. It is all about you in how you treat the people that you have the privilege to lead, and it is a privilege, and the organization that you have the privilege to lead. That's what leadership is about. It's about other people. And I tell all those young lieutenants that we commission, I say, look, to celebrate today. Today is a great day. You get commissioned. Very few people get to do that in this country. But just remember this, once we pin those bars on your shoulder, tomorrow morning when you wake up, it will never be about you again. It's about your soldiers. It's about your mission. It's about your company. It's about your battalion. It's about the Army. It's about the nation. And then if we have time, we might talk about you maybe.
There's such a crossover to business. What you all just said, you could put that in business.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
Look, leadership is leadership. I get people all the time who, when I'm out talking to people, almost always somebody will walk up and say, Colonel McCulloch, you know a whole lot about leadership in the military, but you know nothing about leadership in the civilian world. And I said, are you crazy? Leadership is about people. And if you can lead people, you can lead any organization. And I proved that. I was very successful in the military as a leader, got out, ran the day-to-day operation of a food bank. You don't get any different than that. That's 180 degrees difference. When I took over running the day-to-day operation, we were handing out 1.2 million pounds of food a year. When I left 18 months later, we were handing out 3.8 million pounds. Doubled the size of the fleet. It's about people. It's not about organizations or about flow charts, organizational charts. It's not even about the bottom line in reality. Leadership is about people.
Would you do the military again if you started all over?
I certainly would go in. Whether or not I would make a career out of it, I'd have to see what, I was lucky. I had some great leaders that kept me going and kept me enthused about the military. And, I've talked to a bunch of the people who I helped commission. And since I started, I ran my own Army ROTC program, and then I've been in this one, associated with this one for 13 years. So about 16 years, I've been doing Army ROTC stuff. Over 500 lieutenants I had some hand in helping to commission. And a lot of them stay in contact with me, and a lot of them have gotten out. And when I ask them why, I go back to, I had a bad leader. I didn't enjoy my time because I had a leader who didn't understand it wasn't about him. It was about us. And so a lot of them have gotten out. So I think, and that's what I tell all these young men and women when I recruit them. I say, because I'll get some that walk in my office and say, Colonel McCulloch, I just want to do my 5 years and get out. And some will say, I want to retire. And I say, look, you're 18 years old. You don't know what you want. What will determine that is your experience when you get in. I don't know how many guys that graduated with me and commissioned with me from Northern Illinois who said I was going to make a career out of it, and they got out after 5 years. And there was people who said they were going to get out after 5 years. They retired the same time I did. So it's all based on your experience. That's what determines whether or not you stay in or not. That's my view.
I love it. And that's a good thing about people. They're bad, the good things, the bad things. We never know.
Yeah.
You said something, I apologize. You get me excited here because I love leadership, that you got lucky to find leaders. That leads to my question. People should really search out the good leader and a leader that understands them, correct?
So absolutely. One of the things I talk about a lot is mentorship. And that works both ways. When I walk up to a leader in a company or an organization or at a conference, and I walk up to somebody who's a leader, one of the first questions I ask them is, who are they mentoring? And if somebody tells me no, then I doubt they're a leader. They're a boss, and they have a title, but they're not a leader, because leaders produce more leaders. Good leaders mentor other people. Now, you can't mentor everybody. I got it. There's not enough time. But you got to mentor somebody. And if you are working for somebody who isn't willing to mentor you, then go find somebody who is. Because I promise you, there's somebody out there who would like to mentor you. And it doesn't even have to be in your profession. It just needs to be somebody you trust, who is successful, who understands leadership, and they can mentor you. And I don't care at what level you get. You can be a 4-star general. You still got to have a mentor. You can be the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company. You still need a mentor. So go out and find one. If you don't have one and nobody's stepping up, go find one. And if you're a leader, go find some young leaders to mentor, because they are the future. And it's our responsibility to train them, develop them, coach them, mentor them, so that they can do a better job than we did.
I like that. And I feel like I'm climbing a mountain of leadership. And you get to the top of the leadership. We talked about it earlier. Do you ever stop learning and stop leading?
Never. Never, ever do you stop learning. If you ever do, somebody said it, when you stop learning, you die. And you certainly die professionally if you stop learning. And I'm a huge believer in reading. When I talk about professional development programs, not only for yourselves, but for the people who work for you, I talk about reading and reading autobiographies, and certainly autobiographies, but anything out there about leadership. Now there's a bunch of crap out there about leadership too, but you can learn just as much from that as you can from something that's good, because you can say, yeah, I disagree with that and I'm never going to do that. And that's okay. But there's a lot of great things out there. And I always push autobiographies, because then not only do you learn what that person did, but you learn why that person did what they did. What was the thought process they were going through when they made the decision to do what they did? So I think that's important. And people always ask me, well, what's your favorite leadership books? And they're always shocked when I tell them, because neither one of them, my top 2 books, had nothing to do with the military. Number one was John Wooden's On Leadership, which I think is probably the best leadership book I've ever read in my life. And the second one is Lee Iacocca's autobiography. Lee Iacocca was a great leader. And I love reading his book, because not only did you figure out why he did some of the things he did, or what he did, but you figure out why he did them and how he went about doing them.
Servant leadership. When you hear that, what's that mean to you?
It means taking care of other people first. Simon Sinek wrote a book, but the military's been doing it for years. Leaders eat last. You always take care of your soldiers first. If it run out of food, guess who doesn't get to eat? You. Too bad. You take care of the people that you have the privilege to lead. And again, it is a privilege to lead people, not a right. Your title doesn't give you the right to lead people. You really aren't the leader. You may be the boss and you may have the title, but you are not the leader until the people you lead decide you are. And Colin Powell used to say, goes to a different area about problem solving, but it's the same thing, that the people get a say. And he used to say, when people stop bringing you their problems, you're no longer their leader.
Wow. I love that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
There's a reason he retired.
Yeah.
Chairman of the Joint Chiefs.
Absolutely. Well, it leads to, you said the privilege. Not everybody can be a leader, correct?
No, everybody can. Although I will tell you, there are plenty of leaders out there who don't have the title. And that leads me to, I get asked all the time, are leaders made or are they born? And I think there's a combination. Yeah. And when I say that, people kind of look at me funny. And I say, well, look, if you don't believe me, this weekend, go out to a 5th grade soccer, 5, 6, 7, 10-year-old soccer game. Nobody's appointed a captain out there, but everybody's following somebody. So how is that guy the leader or gal the leader? Because they were born with some things that help them do that. Now you can develop those and make them great leaders. And you can take somebody who has average skills, and if they really want to be a leader, they can learn the things that it takes to be a leader. Then that's easy. The things it takes to be a leader are easy. The hard part is actually going out and doing those things. And that's what makes the difference between a good, average, and great leader, is how hard they're willing to work to do the things that are required to be the best leader they can be.
You're getting me excited. I got moving my chair. I'm Italian. I'm moving around because this is such great talk. And that leads to the other side of it. If somebody, one of your soldiers came to you and said, hey, Colonel McCulloch, I don't want to be a leader. I'm good at being the soldier, taking commands.
I've had those.
Okay. That's a good thing, right?
There's nothing wrong with that. Not everybody needs to be a leader. And if you don't want to be a leader, certainly don't go be one, because you won't be a good one. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that here in America, and certainly in the American military, unfortunately, we have this up or out mentality. If you don't want to move up, then we don't want you, which is insanity. If you look at the other militaries across the world, and I've worked with a lot of them, that if you want to be a tank driver for 20 years, you can be a tank driver for 20 years. Who cares? You'll be the best tank driver there is. So unfortunately, we in America, but certainly in the American military, have this up or out mentality that we force people. And that's why, the Peter principle, we promote people above their ability because we have this innate desire to promote people all the time and make them do things that maybe they don't even want to do.
Right. That's an important lesson. Yeah. So you're telling me if I wanted to be a tank driver, they really wants me to move up out of that. They're not really happy I stay 20 years as a tank driver.
No, you can't in our military.
Oh, I can't even do it.
No.
Interesting. So let's flip that in a business. So you've got, a great admin. She's happy to be an admin at that business, handle the boss's payment.
Leave her there.
Amen. Okay.
Yeah, I always tell this story, and it's true. My father's best friend when I was growing up, I grew up in Kirkland, Illinois, a small little farm town in northern Illinois. And in Belvedere, Illinois, was a Chrysler assembly plant. My dad's best friend when I was growing up worked at that Chrysler assembly plant for 38 years. You know what he did for 38 years? He put the fender on whatever vehicle was being produced at that plant.
That's all he did.
So that's all he did. So here's what I tell people. He was probably the best person for that job. I mean, obviously he's been doing it for so long. If you took over that plant and all of a sudden you got a new vehicle you're building, you're putting together, and there's a problem with the fender, who would you go talk to? I hope you would go talk to the guy who's been doing it for 38 years. He probably told somebody that there was a problem and they told him, go back to work.
And he was happy.
He was happy.
Yeah. And that's the thing. And we talk down to too many people like, oh no, you can't be there at that 100,000, I'm happy. No, you need to, like you say it in the military. We do it in business too.
Yeah,
you'd be great at this. Come on. Oh, go, let's come. You be my sales guy. I don't want to do this. No, you'd be great. And they push him into that. And it just fails like almost every time.
Well, two things. One, they might not be suited for that.
Yeah.
They may be suited for the job they're doing. And number two, if they really don't want to do it, they're probably not going to do a good job at it. There's this passion. I believe in passion. I believe if you have passion for what you're doing, you're going to be good at it. If you don't have passion, then it's just a job and you're just going to do what you need to do to get by.
Yeah, that's so true. And then the flip side, the guy that wants to be sales and doesn't have the skills, a true leader needs to understand that, hey, Steve, Ramona, that's not a good fit for you. I've seen you for 2 years. That is the other side of it. A true leader.
Here's the other side of that, though, Steve. If that's really the case, if that guy really wants to do that, then that company, and I just had this discussion today with somebody, the company has to have a training program to allow people to move up, or at least give them the opportunity to. Now, that guy may go through the training and still not be a good fit for that. And the leader has to have the courage to say, I know that's really what you want, but that's probably not what is the best thing for you. Maybe we can look at something else. But if you have a company and you don't have a professional development program that allows people who want to move up in your program to do so, then they're going to go somewhere else because they really want to be a leader. If you're not providing that for them, at least some training, some opportunity, then they're going to go somewhere else. And here's what I tell senior leaders of organizations when I go out and talk to them. Here's why it's important to have that. Because pick any sports team out there that's very, very successful, that year after year after year make it to the playoffs or the Super Bowl or the World Series or whatever. Those teams grow from their farm team, from drafts. They don't go out and get the free agent and spend millions of dollars on a free agent. Every once in a while that happens, but generally that's not the consistently successful teams. It's the teams that grow it from within them. And that an organization, a company should be the same way. Does that mean that every once in a while you don't have to go out and find some superstar to fill a slot? Absolutely, I got that. But the majority of your promotions should be from inside your organization. And unless you have a professional development program that trains them and teaches them and coaches them and mentors them, you're not going to be there.
And that's so true, because your name's Oakland. That brings me to the Golden State Warriors. You just described the Golden State Warriors winning, 3 and 6 year, whatever that number was. And I'm in the Bay Area, so I know it's exactly what they did. Their 3 top players came from the draft, and Steve Kerr developed them. Yeah, they brought Kevin Durant one year, and they brought another guy. Like you said, you bring a guy to fit. I love that analogy because it does fit with business. There's no difference. Sports is a business anyways, right?
It is. And that fits anywhere, any profession. I don't care what profession you're talking about. Because a couple things. That one, it's a win-win for both. That person wins because they get what they get in the training, and eventually they're going to move up. And you get the win as the CEO, the president, whatever, because you got a motivated, better person, and you're promoting inside your organization. So they already know the culture. They already know your expectations. You don't have to train somebody that you bring in from scratch on your culture and all that other stuff. So it's a win-win for both the people and the organization.
Well, listeners, I'm excited to announce God, I'm getting me fired up. So Oak, I call him always Oakland. Oak is going to jump into leadership coaching here. I'm going to help them. So if they want to reach out to you and get involved with your leadership coaching, how can they find you?
Yeah, so I have a website, ltcoakmcculloch.com. And on there, it's got my cell phone number and my email address. It's got some things that I do. It's, so it's got my book on there. It's got my sizzle reel. It's got some podcasts that I've been on, other podcasts. And it talks about the things I talk about. And then, as of 1 October, when I retire from my day job and I concentrate on speaking, and I'm going to write my second book, and I want to start some coaching and consulting and those kinds of things as well. But if you're interested, just go to my website, and I'm on all the social media as well. LinkedIn, mostly. That's what I do most of my work on. And I think that's where we basically linked up, was on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And so you can find me there. There's not too many Oakland McCullochs out there. I think you can find me.
No, it's a unique name, and you become a friend, and I can say that I know we are, but I'm going to do something special. The first 3 people that reach out to Oak and talk and mention this podcast or my name or both, I'm going to mail you a gift. So Oak, you'll reach out to me, give me their name. I'll reach out to them, get all their
that's very nice of you, Steve.
No. This is and I'm going to be working with Oak because, as you can see in this show, he knows it, and he's taught me so much, and I want to keep learning. We're running to the end of the show, but I wanted to ask you, on your book, what's your book about, and the title of the book?
Yeah, so the title of the book is Your Leadership Legacy, because we were just talking about the legacy. Your Leadership Legacy, Becoming the Leader You Are Meant to Be. And there is no theory discussed in my book at all. And I don't talk about theory when I go out and talk to companies, organizations, conferences. I refuse to talk about theory. I talk about everyday things that everyday leaders can do to improve their leadership skills and abilities, and to improve the people that work for them and the organization that they have the privilege to lead.
And then get it on Amazon. Is it Amazon?
It's on Amazon. You can also, there's a site. My website has a direct link to it. And if you want a signed copy, then you just got to send me an email, and we'll figure out how to make that happen.
I want a signed copy because I want to read that book. So we'll talk after the show, because I think your signature I'm going to make it worth something. And audience, if you have a company, he does speaking engagements. He goes out and speaks to companies. So yes, reach out to him. And what do you talk about? What you do with the speaking?
Yeah, so I'm not one of those guys. I'm not going to show up the day of the speech, talk, and leave. I that's horrible. I hate that. Uh, I like to come the night before. We can have a social event. I can talk to people, and I've actually changed my presentation because when somebody hires me to come talk, I've got about 15 things I can talk about. Well, obviously, you can't talk about 15 things in 45 minutes to an hour. So I say, okay, here's the 15 things. You pick 4 or 5, and then I'll pick 1 or 2, and then that's what we'll talk. None of my presentations are exactly the same. I don't want them to be the same. I want to tailor them to the organization I'm talking to. And I have actually changed the 1 or 2 things that I wanted to talk about based on conversations that I had with people the night before at the social, things that they were concerned about, issues that they thought were problems. So I'd go back to my room that night and I'd say, okay, I was going to talk about this, but now I'm going to talk about that.
See, that's a true leader, finding out the problems or finding out what's the need and going to that instead of like talking about. A lot of people say, I've got this.
It's not about me.
No, it's not.
I mean, I can talk about all 15 things, but that's not what you're bringing me there for. You want me to give you value added to your company, and I want to do that. And the only way I see to do that is to get to know the people the night before, so I can ask those questions and talk to people. And then I'll stay for the rest of the conference if you want, and I'll be in breakout sessions. I'll do whatever they want me to do, and I stick around for as many questions as people want to ask me.
Okay, listeners, I want you to increase his miles on his flights. Reach out to him. Let's get him out let's increase those miles. Well, we've gone over time, but I'm glad we did. We've covered a lot. I thank you so much, and God bless you, Oak. It's been a pleasure getting to know you, and we're going to get to know you more. But can I have one more favor from you?
Sure.
Can you leave a tip for I know you left many golden nuggets today, but what's another tip you can leave them that's helped you in your journey of life?
Yeah, I think this is one that I think a lot of leaders today are failing at, and it's communication. Yeah, and I don't care if you're a leader, if you're just a worker bee. If you want to be successful in life, you got to be able to communicate. And so I think, when I talk about communications, I talk about it across the board: verbal, nonverbal, written, in all forms, including text, memos, emails, handwritten notes. I'm a huge believer in handwritten notes. And then the thing that most people forget about the listening skill is listening. You can't be a leader if you don't listen to people.